Hello. Yes, it's an old guy here, but bear with me, I'm not going to pass out while you're watching this video. This is the tutorial on the song Promises Never Fail, a new one from Bethel Music. Our church was doing it, and when I looked online for some tutorials, I didn't see any complete tutorials on it. So once I came up with some parts, I decided to put this tutorial together. And when I'm listening to songs, of course, I'm listening to pick out the parts that are obvious there, but sometimes I'm listening for some more melodic flow. So sometimes rather than just some really simple quarter note notes that are being played, maybe there's a little bit of a melody that can flow from one note to the next. So sometimes I'll add those in. In the very beginning of this song as well, there was a little part I noticed going on during the intro, but then I just heard a little movement that wasn't in the song that kind of added to the flow once the vocals came in. So you'll hear that as well. I'm going to do something a little bit different from other tutorials, which usually go through the different sections and teach them to you first, and then they do the whole song. I'm going to reverse that. I'm going to do the whole song first. The reason being, if there are people out there who are more proficient guitarists and those who have a better ear for picking out parts, you'll have the whole song at the start here, so you can just pick out those parts and go with it and use what you want. After the whole song is completed, then I'm going to go through the tutorial for the individual parts so you can see what I was doing in case you couldn't tell what I was doing or couldn't pick it out by ear. Another thing about this video is I've got a Vox Valvetronics modeling amplifier that I use at the church, but I decided not to bring it home and use that, instead using my Roland practice amplifier, which has almost no embellishments. There's a little bit of chorus, a little bit of reverb. So you're going to hear the parts just very clean, without any added effects, so that the parts will stand out very clearly, but you can also hear how melodic and how smooth, how powerful they are without any embellishments. So then you can add what you would normally add, according to the song or what you normally use. I would use some more distortion for some of these parts, and especially going to the lead, I would probably be using very heavy sustained distortion during that, and probably a quarter note echo through the whole song. So you're going to hear it pretty basic and hear the parts for what they are without any embellishments. Okay, now we'll get into the tutorial part of the video. In the very beginning of the song, I noticed a guitar just playing a simple fifth and root. And that's on the third and second string. Once the vocals came in, I just heard another movement in my head that I added. And it's kind of nice in the key of E flat, which the song is in. Your G string is actually a third. E flat, F, G. E flat, F, G, do, re, mi. So that's an open third there. So it was convenient to use that open third for this little movement that just goes. So open, first fret, third fret, and just in the timing of that fifth and root we're playing. Now when the vocals come in, so that plays through the whole vocal part, through all the chord changes, and works nicely not only with the chord changes but with any keyboard and sequencing parts that are going on as well. So again, just kind of starting from the very beginning intro, we've got that fifth and root. And then the vocals come in. Then there's that little pause, and then the vocals come back in again. So you play through the vocals again, and there's that little pause, and then it goes into the next section, which is the chorus. Now getting into the chorus, coming from that verse section, our fingers are right in position for playing octaves for the chorus. So from that verse section, our little finger is already in position for octaves for the chorus. So then all we're adding is on the fourth string, first fret. So there's our octave. And our octaves go like this for the chorus. That's the first half of the chorus. Then it goes up higher for the last half of the chorus, just one time. Okay. So you'll notice I'm just playing quarter notes instead of like I was during the song, just to make it a little simpler. So again, that whole chorus part from the beginning. From there, we're right back into the intro and the verse. So you just slide your little finger down and you're back in position for that. And then when the vocals come in, so you go through that whole verse section again, and then coming out of that, you're back into the chorus. The only difference on the second chorus from the first chorus is that second half of the chorus we do twice instead of once. So here's the whole second chorus. So So you'll notice on that last little chorus section, I came all the way back up to the 8th fret. And the reason being, it sets us up for the next part, which is an intro into the bridge. Now, another tutorial I saw was just using a single note that's in there. So you're just moving over one string, or moving over both fingers and playing an octave, just during that intro into the bridge. But there's also another guitar part playing back there. That's a very simple 1, 2, 3, 4. So I saw being able to incorporate both those parts into one movement. And you can let all the strings ring and keep these fingers in place, and you're just adding the 4th. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. So we're right in time. So it's pretty fast piece when you're playing it in the song, so it's important that your picking is always back and forth. So that way you'll be able to get up to speed. Now, if this is too hard, just stay with a single note. But if you want to do this part, just challenge yourself to work on it a little bit if you're not comfortable with it, and get it up to speed. And once you do it, it adds a nice little harmonic thing going on with everything else during that intro into the bridge. So again, coming out of the end of the chorus, stop there to go back into the main bridge part where the singing starts. So then you're just going to drop down. And we're back into octaves like we are on the chorus, and there's just a slight variation on the octaves in the bridge where you're holding the first position for twice as long. So here's how the bridge goes at that point. Do that part again, but now we're going to add those high octaves that we were using on the chorus. Now you notice at the end of that bridge section, I came back up to the 8th fret on the octave like I did at the end of the chorus going into the bridge, and that's because it sets us up for the guitar solo in this part of the song. So coming from the end of that bridge, and then the guitar solo starts right on the 2nd fret. And the parts are just straight quarter note movement from note to note. But I added a little melodic flow into the solo, which sounds like this. So instead of doing it the simple way, you can add a little bit more movement. added that octave at the very end was because that sets us up to go back into the octaves of the chorus. So again, coming out of this octave at the end of the solo up here, we'll drop down to the first fret, and we're doing the bridge part for the end of the song. Here's where we go into a slight variation again, where instead of going back down to the first fret, now we go up to the high part octaves twice. And again, I went up to that 8th fret at the end. Normally you could just end with that ringing and the song breaks down and they have a little chorus at the end and you won't be playing during that. But if you got that earlier little movement in the intro to the bridge that I taught you earlier, you could actually add that at the end if your worship leader likes it and if you could play it very smooth to work with that last breakdown chorus. So in other words, it works just the way it did before going into the bridge intro. So essentially I just play through that whole breakdown section until it ends, and I just close it off like that. So that's something you can add if you want to, but otherwise just leave it out and just end on that last 8th fret octave at the end of the bridge section we did. Hopefully that shows you all the parts, and as you learn those individual parts, now you can go back to the complete song and see how they all fit in, all in sequence.